Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're from, wherever you are actually in the world. I hope you're having a pleasant start to your day. And today happens to be Friday the 13th. Does that matter? No, I just thought I'd point it out. It's Friday the 13th, so it's one of those days where your ears should be pricked, hoping that something good happens to you today. And so we're just fortunate that today it also falls day number 13 of the book of Proverbs. Falls on Friday the 13th. And it starts off, and I think, as we begin to look at these Proverbs, we said yesterday that, the Proverbs really are a blueprint as to how we can live our best life. And so it's basically a roadmap of how we can live, number one, a godly life, but also a fulfilling life. And I guess when I look at this particular proverb and some of the key things that will hopefully bring out is this proverb is really about the value of correction. The value of correction. In fact, the truth is that nobody likes to be corrected. But unfortunately, we have to, because perhaps we don't always get it right. And so some of the reasons why we may not like correction are, I think that the key thing is that we've been brought up in a testing system, an education system that unfortunately is punitive. That's just the way it is. And it doesn't really allow for trial and error. And so because it's punitive, it's either you've passed or you failed. Therefore, you're not going to the next level. And so it's either you've made it or you've not. And so perhaps one of the reasons we may resist correction is because of how punitive it may come across. But that might not be the intention of the person that is giving you the correction. Another reason, and a very important reason, is that we take it personally and we attribute it to the fact that perhaps there is something wrong with me. Therefore, you are very hesitant to receive the correction because of how it makes you feel. It makes you feel a bit small and inadequate, or it may make you feel like that. So perhaps that's why we're not inclined to receive correction at times. And one of the reasons we know that people have an example of this is really, on social media, people really are bothered when they don't get likes on their social media platform. And it's because, you always want affirmation, and sometimes when it doesn't come through those things, you may take it personally. So those are some of the reasons why we may reject or we may not take criticism too kindly. But this Proverbs here is all about the value of correction. And those will be the scriptures, the verses that I'll basically highlight. It says in Proverbs chapter 13 says, a wise child accepts a parent's discipline, and a mocker refuses to listen to correction. Already, wise child accepts a parent's discipline, a mocker refuses to listen to correction. Key thing from there is that wise and good words can preserve life. This is true in a moment of crisis or throughout our lifetime. And at times, we feel like we always want to, when somebody says something to us or corrects us, like I spoke about how somebody pointed out that I was cynical, and I retorted back, and that was mostly a pride kind of thing. But the reality is that we need to be very mindful that, in a moment of crisis, we want to bite back because it makes that other person retreat. And the reason we bite back is because we are offended by what they've said, so we just say something so that we can get them to retreat. But we shouldn't be like that. So sometimes it's always good to bite your tongue or your lips before it's too late. Because in a moment of crisis, things can really be said that can damage relationships. The other one is wise words will win you a good meal, but treacherous people have an appetite for violence. Treacherous people have an appetite for violence. Number 3, those who control their tongue will have a long life. Opening your mouth can ruin everything. Lazy people want much but get little, but those who work hard will prosper. So why is it, when it talks about a mocker or a fool, it's basically saying that they reject all guidance and therefore they never learn. this is the problem with sometimes rejecting correction, is because you won't get the guidance that you need and you really will not learn. Key thing, it's easier. A fool learns from their own mistakes, which is, it's a good thing to do that, but it's easier. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. Why try and reinvent the wheel of mistakes? If somebody's made a mistake, I'm going to learn from them. I know not to do certain things because of the consequences, so I don't take those actions because I know that the result that it produces will not be the optimum for my life. So verse number 3, basically, bite your tongue, don't have to say anything. And lazy people want much but get little. That's telling us that there used to be a saying when I was growing up. It'd be like, if wishes were horses, then beggars would ride. Yes. Now, we said this as young people. I haven't said that in a long time, but when I thought about this scripture, it came to mind. So people that are lazy wish for many things, but they have nothing because they cannot, or they will not apply themselves to the work required to take their desires to reality. Now, there's many reasons why people cannot work. So I'm not talking to those people. We're talking to those people that can. And one of the key things that as lazy people we can do is that we have great dreams, but we never put them into action. So let's not crave the fruit of diligence, which is the results of diligence, without the diligence required to gain it. So I would have loved to play a particular professional sport. Now, I was no good at sport. Please hear me out. I was no good at sport. I would have loved to play some professional sport, but really, was I willing to do the work? So I love the fruits. Everybody is standing for the national anthem. It looks good. It feels good. But was I really willing to do the work? Possibly not. That's the key thing, is that, it's always in the dream, but the work to do stuff is what can be an issue. Verse number 10 says, pride leads to conflict, and those who take advice are wise. Verse 13, people who despise advice are asking for trouble, and those who respect a command will succeed. Now, this is really good. And then verse 14 says, the instruction of the wise is like a life-giving fountain. Those who accept it avoid the snares of death. Man, really good. Wise people think before they act in verse 16. Fools don't, and even brag about their foolishness. But if I can focus on verse 13 and 14, it's basically, for me, it's that the person, it says, people who despise advice are asking for trouble, and those who respect a command will succeed. So we want to be people that are not just hearers of the word, but doers. We want to be hearers, but also, most importantly, we want to be doers. So I want to be a talker and a walker. And that's what basically that is. And which is, when you get words of instruction from people that are guiding you, from a mentor, or you read it from a book, it's one thing for things to read things in a book. It's another thing to go to many conferences, and because you're trying to glean and get as much knowledge as you can. And sometimes it's not the quantum of conferences or books that you read. It's, are you implementing what the book said? If you have got somebody that is coaching you or mentoring you, are you following their advice? Because they can talk ad nauseum, but if you don't follow the advice, then it's absolutely a waste of time. And so that's what I love about those particular two scriptures. Verse number 18 says, if you ignore criticism, you'll end up in poverty and disgrace. If you accept correction, you'll be honored. Woo! Man, correction is such a big thing, but sometimes we have a big deal dealing with criticism. And the reality is that we all make mistakes, but the issue is that the man or woman who cannot be corrected will remain in their mistakes and never learn from them. And this is why it's important that we evaluate our experience. There is power of evaluated experience. We know that there are many causes of poverty, whether it's laziness, the love of pleasure and luxury. You got a great propensity to talk and not to say anything, and just look, poor government causes people, I guess, to be mired, to remain in poverty. But I think the focus really of this particular proverb and this particular verse is that it points to a fundamental problem, namely the refusal to listen to instructions that may correct some of our flaws. And that's where the problem is that I'm just refusing to listen to instruction that will come and correct my flaws and help me along the way. When you ignore stuff that you know you should correct, it just doesn't go away. Down the track, it will come and it will bite you, and it will begin to impact your life negatively. So criticism comes from the Greek word krinion, which means to judge or decide. And so really when somebody begins, I guess when they look to criticize, they're beginning to pick apart. It's like a smorgasbord, where you got a cheese platter, it's got grapes, it's got this type of cheese, it's got crackers. And so you're picking certain things that you're eating. It's like going to a buffet. There's certain things that you pick out at a buffet. And so when somebody begins to criticize, there's certain things that they're picking out, whether they be of merit, of character, or of a certain quality. And what I want to just focus on in the remaining time that we have today is the benefits of criticism. Understand that criticism is a form of communication. It gives you the feedback that you need. It also allows you, if you're running a business, to get to know the people that are using your product or your service or are coming to your restaurant. But it also allows you to connect with someone who might become a customer. So they might not like something that you're doing, and so they come forward and say something. So it is just another form of communication. And because why the premise that we started off yesterday, the blueprint of Proverbs is to help us to live our best life. It's a roadmap for us to follow. So the benefits of criticism, it helps improve your performance or your skills. We learn more about ourselves because of that. There's certain proclivities that I might have that are not working for me. Okay, boom. Like for me, it was being cynical. Now, I put that down to being I studied, I'm an accountant by training, and I did a bit of auditing after I left university. And so as an auditor, sometimes you can be cynical, but that's not their posture. It's just because you're looking at things, circumspectly. But you don't want to bring that into your normal day, everyday kind of thing. It is a posture for work, but not necessarily for your everyday existence. The good thing about criticism is that it gives you a new perspective and opens your eyes to things you may have overlooked or never considered. So it just brings up a whole new thing for you. But also what I like about it is that it's a form of honesty, as it tells you how people think, whether it's good or bad. And guess what? I would rather live knowing how people really felt than everybody gives me a smile and they never say anything. So I don't know what you would rather live with, where people just don't really tell you what they're thinking, and they're always just giving you the thumbs up or this or that. I just think those are the benefits that we have of criticism, and it's important that all of us allow that and not to take the criticism personally when it comes our way. And this is different when you've got people that are constantly nitpicking and sort of like tearing you to shreds if they're doing it every day. That's completely different to somebody who's coming and saying, look, there's an area perhaps that you may improve. And that I think would be the greatest value of criticism. And it's very good to have an open relationship, especially when you're within teams, whether that be in a church setting, in a family setting, or in a team setting at work. You want people to be able to have robust discussions, but also to just be open and frank about what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And you need to invite that as a leader. These are some of the things you need to invite, because otherwise you don't want people walking away from your meetings without really saying what it is that is on their minds. And the last thing, these chapters are just so packed. They're so packed with a whole lot of stuff that can give us direction for our lives. It says in verse number 24, and I'll end with this: those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children, and those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Now, I know growing up, I don't know whether it was discipline. We used to get smacked big time. And really, discipline here is making sure that if there's certain character issues that need to be addressed, bang, you address them. And sometimes it can be a smack or whatever instrument that you may use, whether it's not physical, but really the essence of it is love. You love somebody, you care for them, therefore you feel that it's necessary for me to introduce some discipline so that there can be improvements in their character or in their performance. Which is why at work, they've made it, or if you're working in a job, they've made it very easy to have this feedback, maybe feedback mechanism. They call them performance appraisals. It's an easy way for them to point out that, look, so-and-so, Mr. Steve, you're doing well in this area, but you could improve in that area. So when it comes to discipline, it's really, the essence of it is because you care for the person. You want them to succeed. So your boss at work, they want you to succeed. They want you to do well. Therefore, they're going to point out some things that are going to be beneficial for you. So value of correction is important for our lives. And so please make sure you thank you for subscribing, and I'd like you to continue to write some comments about what you're getting out of the scriptures that may not be things that I've raised, and then we can have a dialogue together, as they say. And I always love to say, peace. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you. I'm out.